Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now today I'm going to talk about a subject which is quite close to my heart, or certainly close to my head, and it was sort of inspired by a question which I received from a viewer, which I will go into some depth in answering a bit later on. But hair loss. I mean, in this world where one's appearance seems to have currency in the wider world, you know, it's how people perceive us, it's how we are looked at, coping with hair loss can be a significant challenge for some men. Now, hair loss can be caused by any number of things. It can be caused by a medical condition, stress, and it can cause a reduction in self-confidence and definitely knock back your self-esteem. Can really affect some men, as you know, you might know celebrities who go to enormous lengths to hide the fact that they are losing their hair. But it is incredibly common. 85% of all men will suffer some form of hair loss as they go through life. And by the time you reach 40, about 40% of all men have significant hair loss. Maybe to the point of baldness. It depends on how you determine baldness. But it is an incredibly common affliction, if we want to call it that, which will affect many, many men. But the thing is, in today's society, hair loss has gone on quite an evolutionary journey. From years ago, where it seemed to be something that men perceived as a flaw within themselves, and tried to hide it using subterfuge like hair pieces, toupees, creative combing of their existing hair and other sort of like measures, to the modern day where it's very much perceived somewhat differently. And many of us who have hair loss have used it as a unique opportunity to encapsulate our personality, our character. It becomes part of our identity. So today I'm going to talk about hair loss and, kind of how I coped with it myself and how I live with it with confidence and grace. So let's talk about my own hair loss for a start, because clearly I'm a bit short on the follicle front, and it wasn't always like that. Because when I was a younger fellow, certainly throughout my entire 20s, I had thick, strong hair, and I guess you would describe it as being sort of fair coloured. Although, to be frank, for the majority of that period of my life, I cut my hair really quite short anyway, because I was serving in the military between the ages of 17 and 27. I kind of had short back and sides or buzz cut hair through that whole period of my life. So I never really, thought much about my hair. It was just something which I cut maybe once every 6 weeks, and that was an end to it. I wasn't particularly vain about my hair from the earlier stages of my life. So when I was about 35, I started to notice my hair thinning, particularly at the front here. I noticed that, the sort of sides were heading north, and there was a bit of a peak starting to form in the middle, and the hair was generally starting to thin. Now, by the time I reached 40, it had got to a point where I realised without a shadow of a doubt that I was losing hair fast. No obvious reason for it. I think it was male pattern baldness, nothing more than that. My father, who is 93, has got more hair than me. So, it's kind of something which has probably been in the genetic line of the family. It never truly bothered me that much. Certainly didn't knock back my self-esteem. So when I was 40, I started to have my hair cut, shaven, quite short. I'd go to the barber and I would have it cut around about once every 5 or 6 weeks. I'm not somebody who is anal about my physical appearance. I look after myself and the way that I look, but I don't go to town on some sort of obsessiveness about my appearance. So I started having it cut. And then big change for me came in the pandemic, which was, I guess, 2020, wasn't it? Of course, all the barbers shut, and then I started shaving my own head using an implement which I bought many years before, but never really used a great deal. I'll talk about this in a little bit, but I started shaving my own head, and from that point on, I've saved a fortune, because I no longer visit any barbers over the last 4 years. So I used to go sort of once a month, and it cost me £10. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm on a bit of a winner. Okay, so how do we cope with the loss of hair? Because Baldness is a really frightening word to some men for whom their self-esteem is very much linked with their physical appearance. And what I would say is the first step in coping with baldness is going to be a mental one. It's not really about the physical hair, it is about the way that you perceive yourself and how that is linked with your physical appearance. And you will find, I think, that many men think having a thick head of hair is in some way equates to their masculinity or their attractiveness to the other sex, particularly if you're perhaps not in a relationship, unmarried, seeking a partner. You may think that losing your hair means that the door is going to be slammed on finding somebody or people finding you attractive and perhaps limiting your options as you go forward. But the truth is, whilst hair loss can be initially distressing, particularly mentally, because you are going to look different. You're going to look in the mirror and something different than you're used to is going to stare back at you. But the truth is, it's not that big a deal. It's of all the medical conditions that you're likely to be afflicted by, some sort of hair loss is the least of your worries. Believe me, it's not a big deal. And once you break away from thinking about your physical appearance with your attractiveness and your masculinity and that hair, you will find many of us get a sense of freedom when we realize that, this lack of hair is something which is a little easier in daily life, to be honest. I never have to worry about going to the barber. I don't spend 10 minutes in front of the mirror every morning applying product to my hair. Life is a little bit easier and it becomes a piece of your own unique personality and the way that you portray yourself to the world. All I can say is that whilst I was unhappy that my hair went south, I would have preferred to have had it than to have lost it, but the truth is, it's never really bothered me, and it never really has affected my strength of character or the way which I perceive myself. Of course, the secret to all of this is confidence. Your personal confidence plays the crucial role in allowing you to embrace baldness and perhaps understanding that the way people see you is not related to the hair on your head. That's something that you're reading into the situation. Now, adopting these thoughts doesn't happen overnight. It can take some time for you to get to that stage of self-acceptance. I know it is. Many men will try the act of combing their hair, from the sides over, creative combing. They might try hair products or hair regaining products, which can be very expensive. They play upon the fact that some men are deeply fearful of losing their hair. But there is an inevitability to it. All right? If you are losing your hair, as I say, 85% of men will suffer hair loss at some point during their lives, and 40% will be bald by the time they're in middle age. So this is something which happens to so many of us. It's not that big a deal. Once you start to embrace that, understand it, don't be afraid of it, you'll find the acceptance will start to follow. And building that level of acceptance and self-assurance in your appearance can take many coping strategies for different people. I know a very common one is to look at people who are perhaps more prominent in the public eye, who have suffered hair loss, and to think to yourself, well, they're still very attractive men, considered sex symbols, or very well-dressed, dapper, stylish people. If they can get by in life with hair loss, what's the problem? And I'll give you some examples. Jason Statham. All right, Jason Statham, he's a very high-level, A-list Hollywood actor, sexy, muscular, powerful character, brimming with self-confidence. He's been bald since the very first time I remember seeing him on the big screen, when probably he was in his 20s. His hair went south. The Rock, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, one of the biggest movie stars in the world over the last sort of decade. Not a hair on his head. When he was a wrestler, I think he did try and sort of play around with his hairline a bit, but, he fully goes for the total bald look. Bruce Willis, another oldie worldy actor. Sean Connery, voted the sexiest man alive, and he had no hair on his head. In his first Bond movie, Dr. No, Sean Connery wore a toupee, a hairpiece, to hide the fact that he had very noticeable hair loss. But he only ever wore his toupee when it was required in a movie. He never wore a hairpiece in his normal life because he was a big, sexy, confident man, and his hair loss never really bothered him. And if you're a younger guy, you need look no further than the Prince of Wales, Prince William, who is, I think he's about 41, 42 right now, shaves his head, bit like mine. I believe he started kind of shaving his head when he was about 35. He had noticeable hair loss, I guess, into his 30s. You know, and he is a big, strong, strapping guy who, you know, one would argue the lack of hair, does it really affect his appearance? I'm sure it doesn't affect his self-esteem. You can also apply that mindset. It's something which you're in control of. Your sense of self-worth and self-confidence in your appearance. It comes from the mind. It comes from confidence. Okay, so those are kind of my wider thoughts on baldness. I mean, just to reiterate, really, the fact is, I honestly don't think it's a big thing if you lose your hair. I am not just saying that because I don't have a lot of hair myself. It would not bother me if I had a thick head of hair, or I'm even thinking about shaving my head actually right down to the skin to see how that feels, because I've never really done that. It'd be interesting to see how it feels, how it looks. I do kind of like having this little bit of fuzz. It feels like I'm protected sometimes from the climate by just having a little extra layer, but it's not something that really, you know, I am not such a narcissist about my appearance, particularly in terms of hair, that losing my hair affected me to a great degree. And I think once you accept it and embrace it, you can go forward on a firm footing. So one of my viewers, actually a patron called Mullard, wrote to me and asked me some questions which kind of promoted me having this conversation here today. And I'm going to use the opportunity to answer some of the questions which he posed, which might help you to understand where I come from with my hair loss and how I deal with it. So his first question was, what tools do you use to maintain your hair? And it's this fellow here. Now, I bought this about a decade ago. It's a Babyliss, and what's it called? It's called the Babyliss Easy Cut Trimmer. I paid £20 for this in a high street store, which doesn't exist anymore, called Wilkinson's or Wilko here in the UK. Went bust last year. But it's a simple rotary design, which you rub over your hair like this, and it cuts off the hair. You've got various different levels you can set it to. But actually, I found that's all I need. It does the job for me nicely. I don't think they make this anymore, but there are current versions similar to this. They're all in the £20 to £40 bracket. It has saved me hundreds and hundreds of pounds. This is all I use. Simple as that. No other hair care products at all. Just this. £20 one-off purchase 10 years ago, and I'm on a winner. So, what techniques do you employ in cutting your hair? Well, basically, I spend 10 minutes once a week, which is normally on a Friday or a Saturday when I'm having a shower, and I just use that to shave my head. As simple as that. If occasionally I might get a few straggly bits around the sideburns or around the back of the ear, which I can't see, and my wife will very kindly tidy them up for me using a scissors. But that's it. It is as simple as that. I do not go to the barbers, nothing at all. How do you manage the cut hair? Right, okay, so the hair which comes out of this thing, of course, I cut my hair once a week, so it's barely a millimetre in length, the bits which are scythed off by this thing, and they kind of end up on the shoulders, because I normally cut my hair when I'm stripped to the waist, so any of the excess hair which is cut off lands on my body, and I immediately go in the shower afterwards. So it all gets flushed away, down the plug hole, job is done. I mean, you could go and, you know, if you wanted to cut it in the morning and you didn't want to shower, I guess you could put a towel around your neck and cut it like that, you know. But for me, before a shower is the perfect time to do it. How often do you cut it? Well, I told you that, once a week, easy as that. I sometimes, you know, push it to 2 weeks if I'm away on holiday or something like that. But to be honest, hair only grows about, what is it? It grows, I can't remember what it is. It's something like ½ an inch per month. So it's a really slow growing thing here, 1 millimetre a week or so. So there we go. It's as simple as that. That's the questions. So for me, managing my hair is a cost-free thing once you buy the initial tool. There are many of these around in different styles. There are many YouTube channels which will give you advice on which to buy. For me, it's rechargeable, or you plug it in. It's worked for 10 years and it's cost me nothing. So there we go. My final comment though about hair loss is it doesn't define you. Your hair is just some fuzzy stuff that grows on top of your head. It does not need to be the end of the world when yours, as statistics will often prove, will start to fall out or leave you or stop growing. It's not a big deal. Even if you're a young man, you can embrace the look and make it part of your personality. Do not let it be the defining feature for your life that you're always trying to hide the fact, or you see that hair loss and baldness is in some way a flaw. Of all of the flaws you can have in life, believe me, having no hair is the most minor. So just embrace it. Make the most of what you've got. You know, just take it for granted that you had your hair. It's a different phase of your life. Hey, it works well for Jason Statham. That's all I can say. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If I have, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, subscribe. If you want to ask me a question, you can drop it into the comment section below or drop me an email and I'd be delighted to try and assist. If you would like to come on the journey with me, you can become a patron, small monthly fee, and you get the additional video content which I produce each and every week with a personal dialogue with all of my patrons. And the question I spoke about today came from one of my patrons who asked me that question. You can also buy me a coffee if you want to support me in a one-off way. So there we go. Until the next time, look after your hair or not, depending what's on top of your head. And I will see you again very soon.